Good morning, friends. I figured it was high past time we stopped hiding our faces. Dan and I can't make the playoffs, but it doesn't mean we can't talk about them. It's week 16. We're in the quarterfinals. I'm finally feeling better enough to do a show. Daniel, I we haven't been able to do a show since you've been on this Josh Allen kick. Do you want to talk about your screen name and get some of this off of your chest? Or are you saving this for a later date? What's going on here?
We can talk about it, man. No touchdown.
I didn't have much of an intro. So when I saw your screen name, I was like, I'm just going to let him go in because you've been texting me about this for 2 weeks now. So
no touchdown should be worth more than one touchdown to any one player. I didn't make the playoffs because Josh Allen on a hook and ladder scored a touchdown and got a receiving touchdown and a throwing touchdown. And that caused Terry to beat me by 3 points. And that loss is what stopped me from being in the playoffs. Phil does not deserve to be in the playoffs. I mean, he didn't last long, but he didn't deserve to be there either. I mean, I doubled his score last week. He did not deserve to be in the playoffs. And Josh Allen did not deserve to get 2 touchdowns on one play. 1 touchdown was scored. Should not be 2 for one player.
I have all my hilarious arguments as to otherwise. The one I told you is every touchdown is worth 2 touchdowns, but I get what you're saying.
So here's the thing. The other guy gave him the ball. So should quarterbacks get touchdowns when he hands it off to a running back and the running back goes in for a touchdown?
Well, Amari Cooper didn't get a touchdown. So it doesn't matter that he gave him the ball.
What Josh Allen shouldn't get a throwing touchdown because somebody else handed the ball off. The center snapped it to the quarterback. Does he get touchdowns now too? Like
I want to know who's more angry. You or Terry, who has had the high score in each of the last 2 weeks.
I'm pretty sure I'm second to him in high score both those weeks.
You definitely were last week because it was by one little, maybe a full point he beat you. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. I will say, Dan, I love fantasy football, but I have never taken it to the extreme that you take it, where years you would have won the championship if you just made the playoffs based on who you would have played and everything.
Yeah. That stuff drives me nuts, man. Because I have this luck of just missing the playoffs by a hair. The 1 year Brett Favre got you in over me.
That was my highest finish until 2020. That was my 3rd place year.
It's just nothing but pain. It's all I know is pain.
I mean, it's fair. You've basically been just screwed over. I'm joking. I don't care.
The last 2 weeks, Terry has been number 1. I've been number 2.
Okay. I'd say I have in fact, I'll just throw it up on the screen right now. I have the bracket.
How about this fun fact? 3 weeks, Terry and I have both been in the top 3, and he has beaten me every single time, including the other one was the game we had against each other where he beat me by 3 points.
Yeah. Well, yep. And so I have the losers bracket up on the screen right now. Terry and JR are battling this week. Horvath and Metzger, we'll get into those games in a second. Obviously, there was no show last week. There are points up for grabs in this bracket. If you win 2 games down here, you have a chance, which makes the fact that in the current losing losers bracket, Eric and Rob are not even starting full lineups. They just have each given up. There's no penalty for not starting a lineup in the losers bracket.
Yeah.
But definitely you're giving up the chance at a lottery point. But going up to the big bracket, what we missed last week, Greg and Rob P, basically the guys who have been in the lead since week 7, took the buys. Both actually had pretty decent scores. Little Stevie put it down on Darren, and Kenny gets by Phil. As Metzger pointed out, he almost doubled Phil up in points last week. So the current matchups are Greg versus Stevie, Rob P, Bobby Wins versus Kenny. A very interesting final. Dan, before we start into just picking these matchups, which is going to make for a short show because we're not going to spend a lot of time on the consolation bracket, do you have anything else fantasy related to throw in? I did go in. I did not pick like top quarterback, the top flex play stuff. So you won 1 week, Darren won 1 week, but I do have our records updated for the picks. You are 64-40. I am 62-42, 2 games behind you. Darren has fallen behind in our time off. He is 59-45. So Darren has some making up to do in these last 2 weeks of picks. So
I have nothing really to add. Just pain. It just hurts. I miss seeing your face on the last 2 weeks. So I'll say that.
I appreciate it, Dan. Like I said, got sick as hell. Not like Kenny sick, but got sick as hell. and wasn't ready to do the show. All love, Kenny. Hope you're feeling better out there, buddy. Let's get to these matchups, Dan. So we'll obviously save the real playoffs for last. So we will start with my matchup because it is the least consequential matchup of the week. Me versus Taylor. Taylor jumps off to an early lead. I'm not going to spend a ton of time analyzing these matchups, but I will scroll a little bit so people can see the matchup. I am choosing to run Jalen Wright out there because I want to see if he has any interesting keeper in him next year. So I'm probably setting myself up for destruction. When I did my breakdown, Dan, I'm giving the win to Taylor. I think he gets me this week, even though I'm projected to win.
I agree. I have Taylor winning as well. Daniels will probably double up Williams, and
that's kind of where I stand as well. What a fucking... Let's talk about Caleb Williams, because you were very right about Caleb Williams. Based on what you've now...
I didn't hear you. What'd you say?
You were very right about Caleb Williams. Based on... What's funny is the two... I don't consider you the most cynical person I work with, but the two of the more cynical people I work with, and you're not so cynical. I don't know why I'm saying it, but anyway, you and Joe Zolo both hated Caleb Williams. Joe, who I do my Wednesday show with, hated Caleb Williams, and obviously this is a big victory lap. But what I was going to ask you is, seeing what we've seen from Caleb, is there hope? Like, do you think he's just going to be a bad pro? We've seen some really nice halves out of him. He's never seemingly put it together for a full game. Obviously, the Bears still have a lot of work to do as a team, and we don't even know who's going to be coaching them next year. Do you think there's hope, or is this kid just...
There's a world exists that he will be a decent, good NFL starting quarterback. I think it's going to be down the road when he matures. I'm going to tell you who he is. He is Baker Mayfield.
Oh, okay.
He will have good games in certain systems. He will have bad games in those systems too. He's not going to be consistent. He's not going to be the Bears' future. It won't be until down the road when he's on his third, fourth team, when he gets in the right system, he matures and understands what it's like to be an NFL quarterback. And he will have success then if he has the right receivers around him. Now, he has the receivers now, but I don't think he's reached that maturity level to get there.
Yeah. Well, and the worst part is then there's almost zero chance Keenan Allen's back there next year. So now you're going to go down a wide receiver. So you're just dealing with DJ Moore, who has to be disgruntled. You're dealing with DJ Moore and then Roma Dunze. So it'll be interesting to see how they build everything next year.
I think that's fine. I think those are two fine receivers to have.
Yeah.
Do they need to add a third to replace Allen? Like maybe someone in the draft or some kind of low-key free agent? Yes. But I think those are fine receivers he should be able to be successful with as a number one overall pick. I just don't like his maturity level and his attitude. I don't think that he's going to be successful until those change. I think he has the physical abilities. It just comes down to him having the mental abilities.
Yeah. Now, like I said, the maturity certainly seems to be an issue. He looks very undecisive when I watch him play. Like he's afraid to make throws. I don't know.
Well, I think that goes back to the mental. I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm nobody and have no actual inside information, but like I don't think that he has that maturity to know what he's doing, or have the Bears having to fire their coach. Like you don't know the whole situation there.
Yeah.
Maybe a new coach comes in and helps him get to where he needs to be, but I just don't see it. I never saw it in college. I didn't see it in his attitude leading up to the NFL draft, and I haven't seen it in the NFL. Like you see you see Joe Burrow go out, and Joe Burrow's not an old veteran, but he's been around for a couple years. But you've never seen him on this, like those pictures you see of Caleb Williams on the sideline, like pouting almost. You've never seen Joe Burrow do that. He doesn't have that maturity, that level to him.
Yeah,
the other quarterbacks you need to have.
All right, who would have thought that Patrick Mahomes and CJ Stroud would have been the quarterbacks, Dan, in our other inconsequential matchup? I will mention of this game and my game, the winner of this game and my game will play each other, and the winner of that game does get a lottery point. So as I mentioned, there are points on the line here. You have to win 2 games in the losers bracket. So the winner of my game and the winner of this game will face off to try to get their second win. So that is up for grabs. Eric jumps out to an early lead, 40-27. However, as I mentioned, and I'll scroll through real quickly here, Eric still has Grendo and Waddle in his lineup. They're probably not going to play. Rob has Younghoe Koo. Eric doesn't even have a kicker. So these guys obviously stop paying attention, which, again, I'm not going to fault in the playoffs. You're playing for a lottery point. It's not the biggest deal in the world. But for me, I'd be trying a little bit harder. When I broke this matchup down, again, Dan, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on a matchup like this that doesn't matter. I had Mott's coming out with the victory, mainly because he has more active players. Plus, I fucking love James Conner this week. So.
Yeah. I'm I'm going to take Rob just so he has more guys still going.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. Is CJ Stroud the biggest disappointment of the season?
I actually got asked this question in an article the other day, and it was hard for me to say Stroud directly because I had to lump him in with two other quarterbacks. Stroud, now Mahomes has come on as of late, so he's less disappointing. But Stroud, Mahomes, and I am blanking on who the third guy I was bitching about was. I have to go look at the rankings right now because he's in the similar spot in the rankings. But it was three quarterbacks. But yeah, I would say Stroud. After that rookie year, we expected a lot more than him. And then they go out and get Stephon Diggs. And obviously he didn't have Stephon Diggs for the entire season. Oh, Jordan Love is the other one. Josh, goodness, sorry. Dan. Jordan Love, CJ Stroud, Patrick Mahomes, I think as a whole were lump sum disappointments just because we saw such good from them last season that you didn't expect it to be as bad this season. Now Mahomes has worked his way up to a top 10 quarterback with a month of stellar play. But it took time. He was down there with those guys for most of the season. But when you look at the weapons around Jordan Love and CJ Stroud, it puts them on equal footing for me of the most disappointing. Certainly the most disappointing for Rob.
I feel bad about that. I encourage that.
He went all in on that team this season. Had Nico Collins, had Tank Dell, eventually moved on from Tank Dell, who actually had a good week this week. But had Tank Dell. Rob bought into the AFC South in a big way, and it was his undoing. But maybe he can come out of this thing with a decent draft pick. So you said you got Mott's in this one too, right?
Yeah.
All right. Now we get into games that matter a little bit more. And we will be starting with Terry and JR. So winner of this game automatically is going to get a lottery point. But they also have a chance to win the championship next week of the losers bracket and win a second lottery point. So 2 points up for grabs in these matchups. Right now, Terry down by 7, projected to lose by 13. Still plenty of players to go, but Terry had a good day out of Derrick Henry, a disappointing day out of Joe Mixon. JR had good matchups out of Gus Edwards and Tank Dell, as I mentioned, but Dell ends up getting hurt. Bad day out of TJ Watt. Interesting days out of kickers and defense. All in all, not too much time we need to spend on this game, except for, Terry is this might be the first time in history a team could go for 3 consecutive weeks of the high score if your boy Josh Allen can go out against New England and ball, Dan. But when it all was said and done, I do have Terry winning this game.
I'm taking Terry for the simple reason of 28, 51, 38. I think Josh Allen has another monster game. He's hot. Yeah. I think he leads Terry to the victory.
Yeah, I don't think we need to go into this one because of how much of it ended on Thursday and Saturday. So we'll go ahead and slide to the other game, which is you versus Steve Horvath. Right now, you are projected to win by 16 points. Horvath got a whopping 1 point out of his IDP, Nick Bonito, which interestingly enough, when I was considering IDPs for the week, I almost went for Bonito, but I saw that Foy Aluakon was out there. So I was like, I'm just going to take the safe points from Foy. Other than that, you guys have not had anyone go. This was an interesting matchup to break down because you guys have good teams. But Dan, when it all came down to it, I got you winning this one.
I'm taking myself as well. My team's been hot. I expect that to continue.
As you mentioned, second highest score for the last 3 weeks. So
actually, I've been in the top 3 for 4 straight weeks now.
Damn.
Yeah, when I was doing the whole me Terry thing, I went to.
I'm pretty sure I've been in the bottom 3 for
the entire season.
13 of the last 15 weeks. It's incredible how bad this team is. So.
Sorry, buddy.
Well, I have Taylor calling me and giving me unsolicited advice at this point. So this season has just went downhill. Normally people ask me for advice. Taylor's like, I think this is how you have to rebuild your team. And so that was when I realized that not a good year. All right. That wraps up the losers bracket, Dan, but we still have one more game that barely matters to talk about. A little bit of a bump in pay. But on top of the little bit of the bump in pay, the winner of this game gets the better draft pick, not the worst draft pick. So we got Phil versus Darren, 28-25. These are the folks who lost in the winners bracket last week. However, Darren is projected to still win this matchup by 15 points, even though they've gotten similar output to this point. Bad day from QJ for Phil. Not a great day from Kelsey for Darren, but he's used to that. Roquan Smith was decent. Will Lutz was good, but the Denver defense really let where am I at? Goodness, sorry. The Denver defense let Phil down in this one. So I think, if I remember my notes correctly, Dan, I have Darren taking this one down.
I have Darren as well. I think he says a better team. Phil's team might be the worst team to ever make the playoffs.
Good Lord. It's just funny because I thought I was in the playoff when I actually broke this one down a little bit, Dan. I just have Darren better at quarterback. I think Jalen Hurts versus Washington's an interesting game. Even though I like Matt Stafford this week, it still gives Darren the edge because he's Jalen Hurts. But I think more interesting is as you call Phil out for being the worst team ever to make the playoffs, Ty Johnson and Josh Jacobs versus Devon Achane and Tony Pollard, I think is a big edge for Darren. But way more importantly, that Minnesota defense against Seattle, I think is going to be a good matchup for Minnesota. And that dud versus Denver just doesn't play out very well. So I think Darren has the edge at a number of different positions there.
I just have Darren better than Phil at team.
Okay. So you were like, hey, we don't need to break any of this down because Darren's just better. I love it. All right, Dan. It's playoff time. We'll take them in the order that they're given to us here. The final four. And interestingly enough, before week 14, you and Darren each sent me your champion. Well, you didn't send me your champion, but your champion hasn't changed, and he's still alive, so I didn't think you were going to change it. So Darren picked Greg as his champion. You have Bobby wins. I've been saying Stevie forever. All three of those four, plus our cancer survivor Kenny, still alive in the fantasy playoffs in the final four. We're going to go with Stevie versus Greg first. This game starts off with Greg up 13 points. That is just about 3 points out of Najee Harris and 10 points out of a human being whose name I don't even know the first of, D. Henley. Is it Dayon Henley for the Chargers gets him 11 fantasy points. I apologize if you guys hear my cat throwing up in the background. I'm pretty sure he's dying. He's been throwing up all morning. But Stevie is projected to still win this matchup despite being down right now, 119 to 198. Dan, I'll let you get us started on this playoff matchup. What do you got here?
I think Stevie takes the win. His team is good. I think it's just a rough matchup for Greg. Starting off with 2 points from a running back.
Yeah.
10 points is okay from your IDP. I will say Steve leaving Knicks and the Ravens on his bench makes me nervous for his team.
You're worried about Baker over Knicks? I like Baker over Knicks.
It's hard when you see how many points are there. Baker's last 4 weeks are 10, 5, 15, and he did have a 28 last week against the Chargers. And even before that, you go back another week, it's an 8-pointer.
Yeah, that's fair. I think he played the matchups and he played them how I would have played them.
Well, you're not in the playoffs, so
that's fair. Very fair. When I broke this down, though, Dan, when you said you had just team better in the last matchup, that's kind of what I have here. I love Baker over Love this week. I love Hall over Harris this week. I love Barkley over Jones this week. Amon-Ra over Devonta. Cup over Addison. I think this is a bounce back week for Cup. Trey McBride, I think he probably scores 2 touchdowns. The team is very aware that he is like the new streak over Deontay Johnson for catches without a touchdown. I think they want to get him into the end zone. I think they make up for that this week. Adams, 8 last week, and Jerry Jeudy has DTR at quarterback. You have Branch over Henley. Branch coming in with that questionable tag, but he's going for the double points on defense. And you got Brandon Aubrey, who's been doing well despite the Cowboys' lack, and plus these kickers face off against each other. There isn't a point in this team where I think that Greg is better. And maybe this is just my ego because I made jokes about there's no chance we can let Greg make the playoffs or win the championship. I need Stevie to end this streak now. Plus, I've called Stevie my champion for, I think, going on 2 months at this point.
Yeah, I'm taking Steve to win too. But it is, Greg's had a great luck streak. He's going to show up again.
That what Greg has done this season, I will remember for a long time. To have the terrible draft that he had, and he didn't come in with like elite keepers. To have a terrible draft, non-elite keepers, but everything fell into place. And I'm not like trying to take anything away from him. He set his lineup every damn week, which is more than we got from him last season. He set his lineup every damn week. And he won, plain and simple. So Nothing taken away there. I just hope Stevie ends it. Bringing us to our final game, Dan. Kenny versus Bobby wins 13-42 right now. However, took more players to get to 42, so Kenny is projected to win this matchup by 16 points. Bobby wins, gets 20 points out of Lamar Jackson and another 11 out of Mark Andrews. These guys both had their IDP go, and it was a bad one for Daniil Hunter. However, Kyle Hamilton racks up 13 points from a safety, which is real nice. 6 points from his kicker, only 2 points from his defense on Bobby Wynn's side, which is why he is now projected to lose this matchup. And as I mentioned earlier, Dan, I think Trey McBride gets in the end zone. Kyler Murray is one of my favorite quarterbacks this week, and I am picking Kenny to go up against his good friend, Steve Weiss, in the championship. I'm picking Kenny to win this matchup over Bobby wins.
All right, it's time to get close and talk about this. Bobby wins. Why are you starting the Texans defense against Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes? You literally have the 49ers defense going against Miami on your bench. A Miami team that you started the – I'm guessing you didn't realize they were playing already. I'm guessing you just made a mistake.
I'm going to guess
on Saturday.
The playing thing, and I'm going to throw out there Mahomes was dealing with that ankle sprain.
It's still Mahomes. Mahomes loves drama. Go back and look at his history every time he has an injury and how he comes out and plays with it. He does. He absolutely loves the hype built around him being hurt, not be able to do something, and going out and doing something. You can't. You are in the playoffs, and you put a defense in against Patrick Mahomes. Like, you're my guy. I named you Bobby Wins, and now I have to pick against you.
Oh no!
And we're going to have to watch Kenny and Stevie, two of the worst fantasy players in the history of this league, go to the championship against each other. Because you started the Texans defense against Patrick Mahomes.
I did write in my notes, Dan, the duds on kicker and defense are probably going to be the difference in this matchup. So
I hope
there you have it.
Bobby wins. I hope he does, because he's had a monster year. He did a great job at the draft. He sucked all last year and dealt with it and made the right moves.
I told Taylor I think he made a new blueprint for a rebuild in this league. And it'll be interesting. I should have followed it. I fucked up. I got my ego got in the way of trying to make the playoffs. I was in a position to follow his rebuild. Instead, I'm out here like an asshole buying Tyreek Hill and buying Caleb Williams, and now I just look like a fucking joke. I think he made a new blueprint, and it'll be interesting to see if he turns it into a championship. It's going to feel like a lot of people need to follow up that way. So, all right, Dan, before we get out of here, if it's Kenny versus Stevie, who do you got winning that championship?
I respect Stevie's team a little bit more, so I'd probably take him.
No, I think that's fair. I'm getting internet problems, so if I'm in and out here, I apologize.
You've been great today, buddy. No glitches.
I love it.
Your face has been perfect all show long.
Oh my goodness, you're such a sweetheart, Dan. I wanted to ask you before we got out of here. I am very notoriously in a lot of leagues, 22 leagues this year. I still have 9 teams left in the playoffs. I know you have that one dynasty we're in, but how are your playoffs going elsewhere?
I do 4 leagues. I made the playoffs in 1 out of 4. So
okay,
that's about it for me.
Hey, you're in that dynasty league, and you still have a chance to take down that first place player. So I'm rooting for you over there. I want to see you take that whole thing down. I need to prove that our neighborhood isn't complete shit at fantasy football, because I have the worst team in that league by far. So I hope you come in there, take a dispersal draft into a championship. I'm rooting for you.
I hope so. I needed more CJ Stroud yesterday. I think my chances went downhill with that.
Well, I have 2 interesting playoff stories this week in our big 32 team dynasty. Dan, I'm not sure if you have seen over there. I lost Kirk Cousins this week, so I was hoping Carson Wentz would start over Patrick Mahomes. So I'll be taking whatever they're giving now, 1.5 points from the quarterback position. It's not good. So I have no quarterback in the AFC Championship. So not real thrilled with my chances of making it to the Super Bowl over there. I picked up I'm sure you remember Eddie Ball. He had a auto draft team at the beginning of the season. He needed someone to take over. So I took that over, and I'm in the championship. They still do a week 16 championship. I'm in the championship, and I went balls to the wall, Dan. I'm starting Michael Penix this week. What do you think of the rookie coming in? First game at home against the New York Giants. I think it's an interesting play. I'm starting him over Tua Tagovailoa in a championship.
I think you're going to get big or you're going to get crap. I mean, I don't think you're getting in between. Michael Penix, huh?
Yep. I kind of got talked into it live on air, sort of like I did that trade. So it's probably going to be terrible, just like that trade was. But basically, they literally said, your ego. Imagine if it wins a championship with Michael Penix, and I couldn't say no. So he is in the starting lineup. To be fair, I wasn't in love with Tua this week against the San Francisco 49ers. He's dealing with his own little hip injury. So I don't love it, but I'm starting Michael Penix this week. And then one other funny story, Dan, got in on a stat correction in the quarterfinals. I lost the game by 0.15, and they stat corrected a Cooper Rush fumble, so I won by 1.85, and neither one of us noticed until Thursday when we went in to set our lineups for the Thursday night games that the stat correction had happened. I saw who I was playing, and I said, wait, he won last week, and the stat correction happened. So nobody else in the league had even noticed. And so got in on a stat correction with your boy Joe Burrow as my main quarterback over there. I need him to hold it down this week. So I'm facing the first place team over there too. So
nice.
All right, Dan. We had no viewers on today's show, and Darren didn't even get a chance to text me his pick. So it looks like it's probably me versus you this week. Top quarterback, top flex. You have 5 wins. Darren and I have 3 wins. Nate has 2 wins. Nobody else has more than 1 win. You want me to go first? You want to go second?
I always want you to go first.
I thought so. Well,
you don't even have to ask. Just go first, buddy.
Yeah, a lot of good quarterback play this week. I wanted to get a little odd with it. It's usually somebody weird who has the top quarterback spot. I can tell a story for this game either way, but I'm going to go with Kyler Murray. Carolina, I think, is playing well enough.
Already lost.
Carolina is playing this game well enough that they can keep it close, force Kyler to throw. James Conner is their only healthy running back, and I'm hoping, that means Kyler's going to run a little bit more. And I think he wants to get Trey McBride into the end zone, so that's kind of my thought process there. And then for my flex, I'm going Jahmyr Gibbs, sort of for the same reason I love James Conner this week. I'm going to go Jahmyr Gibbs because he's their only healthy running back. They still need to win these matchups. They can't allow Philly to take the home field advantage. I think the Lions are going to play, and they're going to play Jahmyr Gibbs hard and well. I think he eats this week. I'm going to go Kyler Murray and Jahmyr Gibbs. Josh, goodness. Sorry, Dan. Calling you Josh all day today. It's been too long since we've done a show together.
Well, that's what it is. That's what it is.
It is. I just do so many goddamn shows with Josh. So.
Speaking of Josh, I'm going to go Josh Allen.
Yeah, that was who I should have went with.
And I'm going to go with Achim.
Really?
Yeah. With Tua being hurt, I think he's going to get fed.
Obviously, in the PPR matchup, since Tua's come back, it has just been a very, very different game. And now all the wide receivers are hurt there. Waddle is probably out, and even Tyreek Hill is coming into that game limited. So you're probably right there. And I don't think there's ever a bad decision in taking Josh Allen, ever. Sometimes it knocks people out of the playoffs who could be champions. So. All right, folks. You're watching late. Thanks for tuning in. Everybody else, you suck for never watching. Dan, parting words for our friends.
I love you guys. Have a great weekend. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, good luck, Stevie. Bring home a championship for the Weeses. We'd appreciate it.
Come on, Bobby wins.
Merry Christmas, you guys. We will be back next week to break down the championship. Have a good one. Peace.